Hey Bailey, I'm recording from my closet because the kids are with the sitter, and was the time I had to tune into your situation. And when you first shared your text with me, like I had all my thoughts, but then I really felt like, let me tune into this and see like what's my psychic take on it. So that's what I'm going to do. Excuse me. When I do this, oftentimes it's like things come to me in layers. And so I'll see the first thing and I'll explain it, and then after saying that, then it's like I can see the next layer. So I'm going to stop and start this video a little bit. Also, with anything, and you're probably good about this, but I always want to remind people of like, take what feels good, take what works, and release the rest. Because if it really creates a lot of conflict internally, maybe this isn't the right time to hear that, or maybe I'm not saying it in words that are helpful for you. But my desire is to be helpful. My desire is to help bring the information, this love and support and the clarity through so that it can be helpful in your life. And so if it's uncomfortable, feel free to, let it go, and no biggie. I won't be offended. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else I want to tell you. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to pause it for a moment, meditate, tell you my first thing, and then see what else comes through. Okay. So the first thing is a little surprising to me. I think this is why I felt like I needed to do kind of tune into my psychic stuff, because my logical mind, when you told me all the stuff, like I had my own reaction to that, and it's probably more along the lines of what you're thinking. But when I tune into the situation, interestingly, what comes through for me the most is your son, John. And I get this sense of a few things. One, that it feels like his path with things like religion, it's going to be like a zigzag. And I get that it's at times it feels that he'll be more into what your parents are into, or then he's into what you're into. It feels like there's this going back and forth. I also, sorry, I get chills when I do this too. I also get this sense that, similar to your parents, there's something about the rigidity of Christianity that really appeals to him. It's not necessarily like a conscious thing, but it's the structure of it. There's something about it that it really draws him in a way that you cannot stop. And I also get, so anyway, one of the senses that I have is that very easily, I think he could really get into it, and it kind of could like satisfy his own feelings, curiosities, needs, or whatever. But that's not going to be how he is forever. It just feels like in his youthful days, and again, this is I'm trying to get a sense of many years, but let's say from now until like early 20s, I get this sense, and I wasn't specifically looking for this time period, but that's just like his youth is the time period that's shown to me. Again, there's this like going back and forth. Oh, sometimes he's into that, sometimes he's not. And also, there being times where it feels like he's chosen that over your way of seeing things. However, what I also get is this sense of, when so how do I put this? Let's just say for right now that that is how it works out, that no matter what you do, whatever your parents believe and talk to him about is what he believes. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's an element of it that feels inevitable to me, that even if it wasn't them, he would connect to it somewhere else from someone else. And yes, sorry, more is coming through here. Interesting. Yeah. And in a way, it's going to be a connection point for him and them. the wild thing to me is if I was a parent who had a kid who all of a sudden became like super Christian, oh my gosh, it would be a lot to handle because there's parts of it that I like and parts of it that I don't like. So my sense is for you, as long as you keep on modeling this openness and your values, and also letting him see repeatedly this aspect of, oh, sorry, I heard my kids yelling. This aspect of non-judgment, and also letting him know occasionally, maybe not all the time, or I don't know, you'll have to decide what I'm going to say, like how often you want to say it, but like if something comes up, reminding him of like, well, there's different ways that people think about God, and that's one way. There are Christians, and then there are other groups who think differently, and it's okay to think differently. And so I feel like as long as you keep reminding him of that, what I sense is that ultimately he's going to pick something that's neither really what you or your parents have, but that's his own unique version of whatever. Like I almost get the sense he could totally, what is the word, convert to like Judaism or become a Buddhist monk. Like it almost feels like he's going to totally floor everybody at some point and be like, guess what? Now, blah, blah, blah is my thing. But there's this interplay for him that it feels like is going to go on for a while as he's growing up, of like sometimes the structure and, as I said, rigidity of Christianity really appeals to him, and then sometimes your way of seeing things and the openness and the expansiveness and the unified and the connection and all of that is going to appeal to him. Now, okay, I'm going to pause because I want to ask, because like for me, for example, the whole thing about sin and hell and all of that, it's like, I don't mind if people teach the nice stuff about Christianity, but when you're teaching kids all about that, that's messed up, in my opinion. So I'm going to tune in and see about that and see what comes up. Okay, so when I tune in about the whole like sinner thing, I get this sense of you talking to, and sorry, I forget if it's your dad or your stepdad, but you talking to your parents about, I think you could well, I was going to say very easily. It might not be that easy. I think the best way to frame it with them would be to say something like, look, if you want to talk about your version of God, whatever, that's fine. Even if you don't think that's fine, kind of acting like it's fine. But the biggest thing I think is saying, listen, if you want to talk about God with him, that's fine. However, things like sin, the devil, hell, damnation, all of that, and or gay people and how they feel about that, or all the other kind of like the bad the bad stuff about Christianity, I think to tell them, listen, he's too young for this type of thing. I don't want to get into any of that because I believe it's going to scare him, and I'm his mom, and I have that right to protect him. And you could say, look, we're not going to have any of those kinds of conversations with him until he's older, like 7 or 8 or 9, and just pretty much giving them the option to, and maybe you say too, like, we're not going to talk about the whole saved thing. Like, I would say, I think if you give the parameters to say, these are the things that I don't want you talking about him with now, at some later date, if you want to, great. Part of it is, my sense is, like you say, it's such a big part of their life that if he's around them, he's going to be hearing it. He's going to be picking up on it. Like it's going to be there. And I almost don't know, are they able to divorce that part of themselves when they're with him? And also, like, probably what they see as like their Christian duty or grandparents' duty or whatever of, instilling this in children. So, but I do think because I guess what I think is, and I think the reason it came through like this is my sense if you were like, I don't want you to talk about it with him at all. None of that. It feels like it would create a lot of friction and a lot of hurt feelings, and just like it just feels like it would not go well, and you wouldn't even get the desired outcome at all. But what I do feel like is kind of this middle path right now is making it clear to them, we're not going to talk about sin. We're not going to talk about damnation. We're not going to talk about homosexuality, whatever. Like, tell them these are the things about the Christian faith and how and their stance on it that I don't want him exposed to until he's like late elementary school. My hope is two things. One, you've made it clear what they can't talk about, but they can talk about unconditional love and Jesus is looking out for you. They can talk about the better parts of it. They can teach him things that'll give him like context for like Moses and Noah, like cultural references. So it feels like it still gives them the opportunity to connect with that with him. Because like I said, there's something about like the structure and the rigidity of it that appeals to him. Not that it'll appeal to him forever, but it feels like it's almost like a tasting menu of, there's going to be periods of his life where that draws him in more, and then periods of his life where he's drawn more to what you are doing. And what it feels like the best that you can do is to be non-attached to like, oh, he's getting really into this thing. Like, oh, are they going to brainwash him? Like, I don't get the sense like if he gets deep into it, that's going to be like what his whole life is now. And he's going to be like a prejudiced, homophobic, person who fears hell and all that. It doesn't feel like that's the path he's going to choose. Per long term, although there might be periods where it's like, again, like there's something about the structure of it that really appeals to him. And maybe it is something that he gets from his grandparents of like, some people need like these really strict like guardrails to make them feel um like safe or sane, or like they can make good choices, and I know good choices is judgment call, but I'm just saying. Okay, what else? I'm going to pause for a second because I feel like there was another thing I wanted to clarify. Yeah, so I know I've a little bit already said this, but I really just want to hit home the fact that um your ability to be open and to know that there's some element, and it's a little bit hard for me to describe, but you embodying the openness and being okay with him exploring this is going to actually, that's an essential part of him building his own view of it. Because, oh yeah, I'm getting it now. It feels that if you imposed, and I know that's a strong word, but let's just say if you imposed your worldview on him, it feels like it would also have the same negative effect of Christianity imposing their worldview on him. It's almost like he needs these two pendulums, these two ends that the pendulum swings between, and your openness and your saying sometimes, well, that's how some people believe, or that's how those Christians believe, but not everyone believes that way, or I don't believe that way. But everybody gets to choose how they feel about religion. Everyone gets to have their own relationship to God if they want. Like being really affirming of that, and and like what your truth is, and also that you're not threatened by them, even though, like, again, we know like Christianity can kind of have some negative influences, but you not being threatened by what they're doing. There's something about that it's like, he, again, eventually he's going to create, I don't know if create's the best word, he's going to come upon something that to me almost feels like a middle ground or a blend that really works for him perfectly. But it's not going to look how you do it, and it's not going to look how your parents do it. It's going to be his own unique thing. And as his mom, the coolest thing is, like, I feel he came to you because you could handle him dabbling in this religion, which has some issues, and not feel that you have to keep him away from it, like, so far away from it. Like, for example, when I was raised, oh my gosh, I was not allowed to go to any church things. I was raised in a New Age family, so we were Christian, but not going to church Christians. So my parents, it's pretty much, they did probably what you would more want to do, or what I would want to do, where I'm like, don't, they didn't want me getting brainwashed. They didn't want me getting into a peer group and then just doing what my peer group did, which was all the Christian whatever. But to me, it feels like if you try and shelter him from that, there's something that he's going to miss out on that is really essential to what he's here to experience. And it might also make him miss out on that bond with his grandparents. And who knows? There is a possibility that his worldview could open up your parents to a new way of seeing things, that they can't see it your way, but they can see it his way. So, and my phone's telling me I'm almost out of time to record. Yeah. So I know that this may not be like the easiest thing that I've presented you with, but it feels like letting him have the freedom to over the next 15 years or so explore it, reaffirming that not everyone believes that, not everyone feels that way, and being non-attached to how he engages, and setting some parameters with the grandparents about, we're not getting into all this, but talk about all the other stuff about it with him if you like. That to me feels like that's the picture that, at least since John kept on coming up in the reading, it feels like as a soul, that's what he wants from this whole experience. All right. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.